Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is episode 40 of High Street Sports. This is the Buckeye Show on High Street Sports. My name is Chris. This is Vince. A jam-packed week of Ohio State football happenings. Really, since the Cotton Bowl, things have kind of picked up. Coaching changes that were anticipated may have taken longer than we had hoped. However, they have been made. Parker Fleming is out as special teams coordinator at Ohio State after what a lot of people, us included, thought should have happened probably even before the Cotton Bowl. But here we are. There's a new safeties coach in town, or a returning safeties coach in town. Basically, everybody of note has come back to Ohio State. And that's really good for the Buckeyes. Everybody that can make a difference and really quote unquote right the ship for Ohio State in this next football season, and what proves to be a pivotal one for Ryan Day and company are back. And again, that's the best news that Ohio State could have gotten, along with the addition of some key transfers. So we'll get into that stuff in a minute. Vince, what's going on, man? How you feeling? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm it's been pretty hectic off season here for the first half. We're not even into spring ball yet, or even winter workouts. Mm-hmm. We may be in the first couple of weeks of winter workouts, but it's going to be an interesting time. I think we're rolling into uncharted waters here as far as college football goes as a whole, and Ohio State. New athletic director on board, and seems to be a big proponent of NIL. So hopefully you'll see some guys getting some deals. Right now, the big watch is on Caleb Downs. He's expected to be in the portal by the end of day today. Not sure how that works. If you just walk in the portal, or if it's a computer, we're still kind of trying to figure that piece out of it too, because it seems like guys are in the portal, but then they're out of the portal. It's like halfway in the time lock. I don't know, but beside the point, Caleb Downs, looking here on the Twitter machine, what is, I guess, formerly known as Twitter, now
It'll always
X.
be Twitter.
It'll always be Twitter. But people are still saying that it looks like it looks like that they potentially could pick up Caleb Downs, and he's still leaning Ohio State, even though Georgia hired his position coach from Bama. So hopefully that happens, and I think if that happens, this defense is going to be a juggernaut. I don't know what position you don't have at least one of the top 5 guys in the country at. Maybe linebacker.
Yeah.
So I think we're in for a good off season. A lot of prognostications going to happen, and I think you're going to hear about Ohio State to the moon, just like GameStop stonks. So we'll see how that goes.
It's been a jam-packed week for the Buckeyes. Like, I mentioned in the intro there, basically getting returns from every starter on defense that was in question, other than Michael Hall Jr., a guy that, is maybe going to take a Jerome Baker sort of route as like a guy that was, pretty good at Ohio State, but never really reached the potential that a lot of people thought he could have in the Scarlet and Gray, which is unfortunate. But, Michael Hall Jr. had some pretty big spots at Ohio State, and there's a lot to be said for the things that he was able to do there. But outside of Michael Hall, basically everybody else: Tyleik Williams, JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Jordan Hancock, Denzel Burke, Lathan Ransom. So, I mean, the list goes on. Ohio State was very fortunate in getting the good news from all of those guys. And, it proved that the sky is not falling in Columbus, like a lot of people would have liked to make it out to be. So, the culture is still intact in Columbus. The Buckeyes are still here. And with the addition of Quinshaw Judkins to the running back room on offense, Will Howard is the quarterback. I cannot for the life of me remember the guy's name from Ohio that committed the tight end. But, those are guys that Ohio State are going to need. Seth McLaughlin can be included in that conversation as well on the offensive line. So, there's a lot of good things that are going to happen for the Buckeyes. And what could be one of the, on paper at least, one of the more deep, talented rosters that Ohio State's had in recent memory. And that again falls on the shoulders of the coaching staff to go out there and make things happen for them, put them in position to succeed. They're the one big coaching hire that's still left, I guess, is the offensive coordinator, co-offensive coordinator, or whatever his position is going to be called. I assume it's going to be co-offensive coordinator with Brian Hartline. So we'll see what how that shakes out in the next couple of weeks. But a lot of good things happening for the Buckeyes. All that good news last week. Caleb Downs potentially joining Ohio State, and what could be the final infinity stone there in the gauntlet for the Buckeyes, so to speak. And based off what we heard today out of the introductory press conference for Ross Bjork, the new Ohio State athletic director that will take over for Gene Smith come July 1st. It's a situation where Ohio State really, we've seen, obviously, if you're going to get all those guys to return, there had to have been some sort of advancement made in NIL. So, there's a lot happening there behind the scenes. The collectives are working together to make things happen, and we've seen how Texas A&M was willing to throw around some NIL money with under Ross Bjork as their athletic director there. So you have to get excited if you're an Ohio State fan, and at the potential that's there with NIL, with a new regime, new president Ted Carter seemed to be on board with moving this program, not only the football program, but the athletics department as a whole, forward in this new age of college sports. Now, I think there was a silent wink to the fact that football is king in that scenario, and I think we all know that, for better or worse. But, it's a situation where Ohio State's going to be in a very good position going forward. Now, that starts with what happens on the field in 2024. So, again, that's not to add to the pressure of Ryan Day and the guys that have decided to come back and those that are coming in. But it's exciting times for the football program. So, what do you think as far as, obviously Caleb Downs is the big name that's out there. As we mentioned, some offensive linemen from Washington and Alabama are now in the portal, given the coaching changes that have happened at those respective universities. But what do you think about the prospect of adding Caleb Downs to this defense? And, obviously, I think everybody would agree that the Buckeyes are in need of some offensive line help. So out of the ones that are available, what do you think those guys that are on the table, so to speak, for the Buckeyes, what do you think they could add to what's already going to be a super talented roster?
Yeah. So on the defensive end, I think that adding Caleb Downs would really just be the cherry on top. You've got Lathan Ransom coming back, who PFF just tweeted and said that he was the highest or lowest, I guess, graded. Lathan Ransom was safety in coverage last year. So lowest passer rating allowed in coverage last season for safeties at 19.8 passer rating. So bringing back Lathan Ransom along with a stud like Caleb Downs, and then having guys like the four-headed monster you have in the cornerback room, and then Sonny Styles, and the other linebacker, Cody Simon. And I think that you're going to have a defense that's going to be really, really tough to play against. And the real question is going to be on the other side of the ball. Will Ohio State be able to turn that around and get it humming back to the way it used to be? I think you probably need at least one interior lineman and one tackle. So you're looking at the kid from Washington, Nathan. It just escaped me. It starts with a K, I believe.
We're prepared on this show.
Very, very prepared. No, I think the kid from Washington's going to be a key. He's leaning to Ohio State. And then Caden Proctor from Alabama is also in the portal. That would be a huge get if you could get him and have him be your starting left tackle, along with Jimmy Crackcorn at the right side. And I think you really would have a solid offensive line there, given Seth McLaughlin coming in the center, who could also move to guard if we see the improvement needed from a guy like Carson Hinsman. So I think really the key to this offense is going to be who comes in and calls the plays. And I don't think that I think that Brian Hartline has shown he's not that guy right now. Doesn't mean he can't be in the future, but he's certainly not the guy at the current moment. And we would certainly want to that we get the right guy in there to call plays, because I think that Ryan Day needs to take a step back. And apologies for the crazy man barking in the background there.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a situation where I think a lot of other people have talked about the Brian Hartline situation with him getting elevated to the point that he was elevated to last year, and I think in an effort to really retain him and make sure that he stays at Ohio State. So there's a lot of responsibility that comes with the offensive coordinator / play caller role, which is why I think you do see a lot of Ohio State's struggles based upon the fact that Ryan Day just has so much on his plate. So I think with the addition of an established play caller, an established offensive coordinator, somebody who really can shoulder the weight of what that position means, especially at Ohio State, will not only help to kind of groom Brian Hartline into the play caller, offensive mind coach that he needs to be, but will also kind of help him, I think, get back to the development of that receiver room as well. If you really kind of take some of what he was trying to learn off of his shoulders, and again split those responsibilities up with a more established guy that can help him out with that, that will help him get back to the receiver room and really develop those guys the way that they need to be at Ohio State, and get them back to the standard that was that room in totality that we've come to realize. So but I think a lot can be said for the addition of Quinshon Judkins as well. Travion Henderson, obviously everybody that has tuned into the show at any point understands my opinion of Travion Henderson. And I think with his injury past and the things that he's dealt with after his freshman year at Ohio State, adding somebody like Quinshon Judkins, who has something crazy like 450 plus carries over the last 2 years at Ole Miss, having somebody that can, that has proven that they can shoulder that load, come into the room and, get into a situation where it's not all on either one of them to go out there and have 20 to 30 carries a game. And when you can, split up that workload and kind of ride the hot hand, and, get back to that boom and zoom sort of running back room that Ohio State's had in the past, it really, is going to provide a lot of good things for the Ohio State offense when you can get back to that. Now, obviously we've heard in the past the 250 notion, right, on offense, where you want that balance. It doesn't have to be that, but I think Ohio State would really, really benefit from a healthy run game. And to have two backs like that, one that has done it at a pretty high level in the SEC, and another who has done it at a high level in the Big Ten, you're talking about two running backs in the same backfield that are as talented as any combination that I can remember at Ohio State. So, when you talk about the addition of Jeremiah Smith, you talk about the welcoming back of Emeka Egbuka, Brandon Ennis, Carnell Tate, and now Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, Dallin Hayden. We'll see what we can get out of Will Howard, but this has been a last week and a half or so of getting a glimpse into what could be for Ohio State this season. And a lot of people saying that, as it stands right now, and obviously this is a way too early type of scenario, but on paper you're looking at probably the number one team in the country going into next year. So again, not to add to the expectation here, but there's a lot of weight on the shoulders of this Ohio State team. And I think, Ryan Day understands that and is going to take that into account. And I think that's, part of the reason why we haven't heard an announcement on who is going to be the next co-offensive coordinator. So, yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of excitement that is built in the last, month, and especially after the Michigan debacle and again the Cotton Bowl debacle. But you look at the last week and a half, and things seem to be restored as far as faith in the program goes. So and that there's some games this season that you can point to that are going to be some tough ones, but Ohio State's schedule is much more favorable than it was last year. So with the additions and the returns and things like that, it sets Ohio State up for what could be a promising 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you even need to throw the ball with Quinshon Junkins and Travion Henderson back there? I don't think so. I mean, you could probably run for 300 yards a game with the two of them in some NCAA 14 type of scenarios. You get a juggernaut offensive line and just run zone read left, zone read right, and you're cooking 10 plus yards to carry. I really think that you made a good point there about Brian Hartline and him kind of being able to kind of take a step back and focus more on the wide receivers. I think you really need to do that from his perspective. Not that I think that he's doing a bad job, but I think that there's some areas that those wide receivers need to improve on, mainly perimeter blocking. It's been pretty awful the last couple of years. And part of the reason why some of those stretch plays, especially to the boundary, didn't really work that well, especially early on in the season, because you really need to seal those edges there, and the receivers just weren't getting it done. So, I think as we head into winter workouts and then spring practice, I think that's where I want to see some improvement from the wide receivers, is see them, getting out there blocking, be some dogs out there, and really take some initiative and take that next step, level up that receiver room, and get it back to the Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson type of days. I feel like last year, even with Marvin Harrison Jr., the probably the most talented guy to ever walk into the Woody, naturally, and Emeka, and Julian Fleming, I felt very underwhelmed from their performances the last year. So let's hope we can get back to that, and I'm really excited to see a new offensive play caller come in. I think that there's some good guys that could be out there, but I really do think that I think the NFL season playing out may be a factor in why no one has been hired yet. I feel like Ryan Day kind of wants an NFL play caller, somebody who can come in and be cool and calm under pressure, and who really knows how to call those plays, and get an offense moving that has a similar philosophy. And one thing that was not mentioned when we talked about the defense there was Matt Guerrieri, hired to replace Perry Aliano. Guerrieri was a Jim Knowles guy down in Duke, was there for quite a while with him, and also was the DC at Indiana last season. So he's got a lot of experience, and I think it's an important thing to be said that he's a Jim Knowles guy, so he knows the system, and can implement that the way that Jim Knowles wants to continue to evolve. And I think that could potentially help Jim Knowles become a little more aggressive. We saw him kind of step back from that last season, but I think that coming back with a team the way that they're going to be composed next season, I think you're going to see a Jim Knowles unleashed, because he can trust the athletes back there, especially in the secondary. I mean, even if you don't get Caleb Downs, you still have Lathan Ransom, you've got Jermaine Matthews, you've got Davison Igbinosun, you've got Jordan Hancock, and Denzel Burke. Did I miss anybody? I feel like I said a lot of names there, but I feel like I missed one.
A lot of young guys too that I think are
Mhm.
waiting in the wings. And it's, I hate to use the term. I hate it. It drives me nuts when I hear this, but I'm going to do it because, if you look at Ohio State's roster on defense, I mean, it truly is an embarrassment of riches. And, it's a roster that, has been put together and has played together for now some of these guys 3-4 years. And I think the thing that was talked about going into this year, right, was the continuity that was on the defensive side of the ball and the coaching staff. And obviously you take out Perry Eliano, but for the most part you have an entire coaching staff that's coming back for a third year. And then also you've got the addition of I don't know how to pronounce his name as a safeties coach. So it's a guy that's he's been with Ohio State before, is familiar with the program. So you add a guy like that who for whatever it's worth, Indiana's defense was probably the better part of that team last year. So you add a guy that is a proven coach at this point. Who can come in, has familiarity with Jim Knowles. So, he might not have continuity directly in this coaching staff, but he has continuity with Jim Knowles to some respect, which I think, there's something to be said for that. And, with the amount of returners that you have on that defensive side of the ball, even if you do add a Caleb Downs, who, by the way, had over 100 tackles as a freshman, true freshman, mind you, at Alabama last year. He is, the definition of a dog. And Ohio State was the clear runner-up in his recruitment a year ago. So you have to think that, based on the way the defense looked last year, that has to be appealing to him. Now, as you said, Georgia did hire his position coach. So, that makes for a little bit of a roadblock there. And, obviously Coca-Cola and Georgia aren't afraid to throw around some NIL dollars either. So, it's going to be, an uphill battle, I think, for the Buckeyes. A lot of people do feel like Caleb Downs would be leaning towards Ohio State in that scenario, but we'll have to see how that plays out. But you add a guy like Caleb Downs, that is a massive get for the Buckeyes if they were able to swing that. A guy that would have 2 to 3 years of eligibility left, probably more on the side of 2 years left. But that frees up the potential to move a guy like Sonny Styles down towards the line of scrimmage and let him play linebacker, which in turn allows them to maybe move CJ Hicks down to the defensive line if they chose to do so. So, you've got some versatility that's there with Ohio State. I think even if they don't add Caleb Downs, they will still probably add another safety in the portal just for depth purposes and to get another body in that room. So we'll see what happens in the spring portal if they do not spring portal window if they do not end up with Caleb Downs. But yeah, I mean that's got the potential to be a very, very scary silver bullet defense in what was already a very good defense last year. So I can't remember a time where Ohio State had that many key pieces of a defense returning, and with a coaching staff that again has been there for now the third year minus one piece. So yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the team in terms of what they're going to be able to do on defense, I mean, you got to have confidence in all four of those corners. And, when you can cover, obviously, that gives you a much, much better chance to go out and win football games. And like I said, especially with Ohio State's schedule, who outside of Michigan, Oregon, and Penn State, maybe one more. Has a very favorable schedule next year. So
Michigan State. I think Michigan State's going to be a sleeper that
yeah,
we're not taking into account with a new coach
right.
and some transfers. So that's going to be a tough one. But no, I completely agree with you on that point.
Yeah, and it's again, like there was some, and I think you do whatever you got to do for clicks, right? And all these
Mhm.
reporters and prognosticators and people that are afforded to have a platform that decided to leave out Ohio State in their way too early 12-team playoff predictions. Yeah, good luck with that one.
Yeah, I think, Ohio State, we know they're going to be really good on defense next season, regardless of Caleb Downs. I think the Caden Proctor is probably more important to try to get. But I have seen Tim Walton's already been down trying to recruit Caleb Downs. So Tim Walton's probably been one of our best defensive recruiters in the last 2 or 3 cycles. So
Yep.
really good to see that. I know that we barely missed out on him earlier in his recruitment last season. So really, at the end of the day, I think the defensive side of the ball is going to carry this team, especially early on, while Will Howard's starting to get a feel for the offense. But I also am not convinced that he is the day one starter or that he's 100% going to be the starter right now. I think you're going to see a true battle at quarterback with Will Howard and Devin Brown, and may the best man burn the boats at the end of the day. And that's not to say I've been a Devin Brown fanboy, but I don't know what Will Howard has to show, and I want to see it. I want to see it from both of them. And don't count out Aaron Noland. It's not likely that a freshman's going to come in and win the job, but sometimes those lefties can come in and make impressions. Speaking of another lefty who's made an impression, Tua Tagovailoa, he was only a freshman when he went and took over that second half and beat Georgia in the Natty. So you never know what can happen, and really excited to see that. I think that the next couple of weeks and preparation are going to be really key to how this season plays out. I don't understand why prognosticators or clickbaiters or trolls or whatever you want to call them would not have an Ohio State team that has as many pieces coming back in a 12-team playoff next season. I think that Ohio State can probably lose 2 games and still get into that playoff. I don't think it's going to happen, but just saying. And to your point about the schedule, do we think that Michigan is going to be Michigan that we saw this season? I mean, they're losing, I think, like 50 dudes who were seniors this year or early, guys who could leave early. And do we even know if Jim Harbaugh is going to be there next season? He keeps talking about how he wants immunity in the event that the NCAA comes down with any sanctions or anything like that, immunity from being fired, which to me tells me that he's either on his way out or he is living in a fantasy world and is extremely delusional, because what that tells me is he knows he's cooked and it's over.
Let me ask you a question. Would
Mhm.
you ask for immunity in contract negotiations if you knew that you were innocent?
No, no. I
Okay.
mean, there's no.
So it's very interesting to me how this has turned from, oh, we're innocent, we didn't do anything wrong, to now, well, if the NCAA finds out that we did something wrong, that we did do wrong, now I want to be promised that I am, immune from any sort of termination from my contract should they find out that we cheated. But even though that we were innocent, but like, hey, can you grant me immunity because they might find out something that we did wrong. So it's a weird juxtaposition in their attitude. They sold their soul to the devil for this national championship, and I think they will live with that. And judging by what I've seen on Twitter since the night that Michigan did win that national championship, they are perfectly okay with that. The most arrogant fan base in college football is continuing to be the most arrogant fan base in college football. So
Yeah,
that is what it is.
let's talk about that as a whole too. We're talking about a Michigan, a university that just on this past Monday, on Martin Luther King Day, honored a Fab Five team um, for what they did when they clearly cheated, had to vacate all of that stuff. So how in the world can you tell me that they're going to have some shame for potentially cheating their way to a national championship? They're not.
They don't care.
And they don't care, and they're going to continue to celebrate this national championship just like UCF. And got to throw that in there.
Our friends in Orlando.
Yes. But I think that I think that the fans know that it's tainted. At the end of the day, though, let's also recognize that what played out on the field, whether there was improprieties or not, played out on the field, and Ohio State has lost to Michigan 3 years in a row. That is not a fact that is going to change, regardless of any vacated wins or vacations or whatever you want to call it going on. Ohio State still lost to Michigan the last 3 years, and it's still a problem that Ryan Day needs to solve for. So I think that that's what the theme of this offseason needs to be in that room. And I think you need guys like Mick Marotti really pushing these guys to go ahead and take that next step so that they can level up and we can really get to it and potentially win a national championship going forward.
100%. And that should be I mean, that's always the goal, the aspiration, the expectation year in and year out at Ohio State, and that's not going to change anytime soon. So to answer your question, do I think that Michigan is going to be the Michigan that we saw this year? The answer is no. And I wonder what they're going to do at quarterback. I don't know. I haven't seen Alex Orji throw the ball. The only thing I've seen him do is run. He was the third string quarterback. I don't even know the second string quarterback's name. So they're going to have to figure something out there to cover up what was a largely mediocre performance in the last 2 years out of JJ McCarthy. Whether or not Michigan fans want to prop him up and say that he's the greatest Michigan quarterback of all time doesn't really say a whole lot about the past quarterbacks that have come through Michigan. So they're going to have to replace JJ McCarthy in the half production that he gave to that team. Great leader, great kid. Don't really have a problem with JJ at all, other than the fact that their fans like to tout him like he was the second coming of Christ himself.
You didn't realize he's not Jesus? I mean,
no.
he is Harbaugh's Jesus. And
he can be Harbaugh's Jesus. But
I still don't understand why he's disrespecting those two running backs by anointing JJ as the as the Michigan Jesus. I've heard a lot of comparisons to Joe Burrow and JJ McCarthy, and there's none of it could
what
be
are
anywhere
we
close.
even talking about?
Yeah, none of that is anywhere
JJ can't throw the ball to save his life compared to Joe Burrow. Those two don't even need to be in the same breath. That is absolutely absurd. But again, to finish my comment about what Michigan could be, they're losing a lot, like you mentioned, something crazy like 40 players. They are hilarious to ridicule Ohio State for having so many returning players and having so many seniors on the roster when that is literally what they did this year to win their national championship outside of the other shenanigans. And I'm interested to see if and when Harbaugh jumps ship to Los Angeles or wherever he's going,
He's going to the
how
Vikings, bro.
quickly. Well, they didn't want him the first time. It's going to be interesting to see how quickly they deny the fact that Sharon Moore was born on third base when he becomes the head coach at Michigan, and how quickly they would spin that should his head coaching tenure not go the way that everybody thinks that it could. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Michigan, how competitive they will be on the heels of this national championship in this upcoming season. Be interesting to see what comes of the next wave of the Luke Fickell transformation of Wisconsin, as he continues to get more of his guys in there to play more of his style of football up in Wisconsin. It'll be interesting to see what kind of changes, if any, are going to be made to Penn State to see what kind of program they can be next year. So it looks like, as it stands right now, with the way that Washington has kind of imploded with the, the subtraction of Coach DeBoer and the portal. Just, I mean, you lose Roma Dunze, you lose a lot to the portal. So Washington's not going to be as strong as they were this season. You obviously lose Michael Penix there. So it looks like a two-team race at the top of the Big Ten as it stands right now on paper, with Oregon and Ohio State, who play in Autzen Stadium in Oregon this season coming up, in a conference game, which is still interesting to even, utter those words that Ohio State and Oregon are going to play in a conference game. But it's exciting. And so, there's a lot of parity in the conference right now, I think. But I'm gonna be very, very excited to see Michigan fans crumble this year, with the potential for the season to go the way that it can for the boys up in Ann Arbor. So, Taylor Lewan, Dave Portnoy, enjoy it while you can. Talk the shit while you can.
I mean, they're going to talk the shit no matter what.
But Dave Portnoy, and I'll give it to Dave. Dave is a shit talker. He made his company on being a shit talker and on his, personality. And I'm a Barstool fan. I've been a Barstool fan. I'm not a Barstool fan boy, but I do consume their product, and I do enjoy some of the stuff that they put out. And I think Portnoy's entertaining. He's good at what he does. He knows how to generate eyes, and he knows how to say things. But good God Almighty, he did not wave the Michigan banner as hard as he did this year ever before this year. So it'll be fun to watch him eat shit when they come back down to earth and when everything settles down. Taylor Lewan will always talk shit, but he can rest easy and lay his head down comfortably at night, knowing that he has one of the greatest quotes out of Michigan football history, when he said, "All I've ever known at Michigan was failure," and now all of a sudden Michigan's the greatest program in the world. Funny how everything turns 180, but is what it is.
Did he ever beat Ohio State?
Lewan either did not or won one. I can't remember.
It looks like he might have won one the year that
was it the
Fickell
transition?
was the
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as far as I'm concerned, whatever, dude. But with Dave Portnoy, I think that he is a bit of a bandwagon fan when it comes to his quote unquote teams, right? He's only going to be loud and boisterous when they're good. Think about this, right? He wasn't loud and boisterous about Michigan until they were good. He's been loud and boisterous about the Patriots for the last how many years?
Not the last two.
They've been good, right? And they've sucked ass the last two. So that's what I mean by he's a bandwagon fan. I know that he has always been a fan of those teams. He went to Michigan. So you really can't call him a bandwagon fan from that perspective. But I mean it in the way that he is just being loud and boisterous when it's time, and then he closes his suck hole off to and changes it over to something else when it's time. So I think that this next season is going to be really, really interesting and fun to watch, especially with the new teams in the league. I think that Oregon is going to really level up the Big Ten, especially with Dan Lanning sticking around and not being a part of that Bama team, or not being the next Bama coach, and it being Kalen DeBoer. But it's ironic that Kalen DeBoer, Dan Lanning, and one or two other coaches that were linked to Bama all have the same agent. So it's like the agent just threw a bunch of those names out there to his buddy Pete Thamel, which there's nothing wrong with that, but he threw them all out there, and one of them stuck, and the rest got paid because of it. So,
Yeah.
it's an interesting dynamic to see, and I don't think that a lot of people put that out there, but that agent just made himself some money because he gets a cut of that anyway. So good on him. And James Franklin was one of those guys in there that
was
he,
unbelievable.
that
Could you
Pete originally
imagine?
did not mention, and then had to edit his tweet to add it on there.
Could you
And
could you just for 1 second just sit back and imagine? Close your eyes with me and do this exercise. Just imagine James Franklin
at
on the
Alabama,
sideline at Alabama. What the hell kind of shit would that be?
well, I think that James Franklin actually would have been a home run hire for this coach of Alabama.
Oh my!
And
Yeah, he's
hear
be
me
the one to
out, hear me
fail.
out, because no matter what's going to happen, no matter what happens, whomever was the coach at Alabama now, and Kalen DeBoer, sorry, bro, but you're going to be gone in 3 years, and everybody is going to hate you. They're going to run you out of town because you are not Nick Saban. You are not Jesus to them. He gone. So
You don't ever want to be the man to follow the man. I mean,
no, I mean
that's a lose situation.
He's essentially Bama's rebound chick.
That's a very good way to put it. After a very
Kalen
long and
DeBoer
successful marriage.
Yes, is Alabama's rebound chick. Man, I feel bad for him, because he's gone in 3 years, and where's he gonna go? Illinois.
Now on the yeah. Hello, Lovey Smith. On the flip side of that,
Lovey Smith's still employed by Illinois.
No.
Oh,
But he had a great beard though. On the flip side of that, better beard than he ever had football team, which is a conversation for some other day when we
could talk about some of his NFL teams. He had a couple of good ones of those, but
the Bears. But it's yeah. Anyways, yeah, Kalen DeBoer could be a good coach at Alabama, but with what's happening currently in the portal, and with players leaving and all this other stuff, man, that is a tough uphill climb to follow. I don't really think there's an argument. The greatest coach in college football history. So I wouldn't want that job. I'll put that out there. I would not want that job.
No, do not want to be the rebound chick. But this is shaping up for Lane Kiffin or Steve Sarkisian to come in and save the day after Kalen DeBoer. Because those two guys are beloved in Alabama, when they decided that they needed to join the Saban school of rehabilitation. Yes. So
how many people are talking about that? Saban?
No, I mean Joey Freshwater
and
then you got Sark, who was allegedly hammered on the sideline of USC games, allegedly. It's just like, man, and I feel for the guy, for Sark. Substance abuse is not really a funny thing to joke about. I've had a lot of friends get taken by that, but at the same time, it's like, man, you got to fall hard to be up there getting hammered on the sidelines of USC coaching the team, and then Clay Helton takes over as the full-time guy, and Ed Ogeron was on that staff. Didn't he take over too? Or was that
at some juncture another? That's wild times to think about. That's the Wayback Machine. Good God. And then, Lane Kiffin, every Tennessee Volunteers favorite past head coach for the Vols. So, yeah, I mean, it's telling that neither Sark nor Lane Kiffin. We joked about it over text. Lane Kiffin spent a lot of money in the portal in the last 2 weeks to jump ship and go to Alabama at this juncture. So, and Sark
but he
is
lost his best running back.
Well, yes, but I think that was a product of him spending all that money in the portal to bring people in rather than to use the resources on his current roster. So,
yeah, fair.
Your trash is our treasure, sir. So thank you. But it's interesting times in college football, man, and it's going to be a lot of fun going forward. So, and again, the offseason has only just begun, which is wild to think about after, you get the news that we got over the last week and a half, which was just, there for probably, obviously not all of it's college football, but over the span of 36 hours or so, you got Pete Carroll, Nick Saban, and Bill Belichick all being out in their current spots, which are 3 head coaching legends in the sport of football. So, that's a lot going on. The portal, there's always a lot going on there. So, roster changes and things like that are always happening. As we mentioned, when we started the show, Ohio State did hire a new athletic director, which points me in the direction of a different sport at Ohio State. We talked about this earlier via text, and we've talked about it over the last couple of weeks. There is an issue at Ohio State, and there is an issue on the sidelines of Ohio State basketball.
Can we just say it? Can we fire Chris Holtmann? He's
this dude.
He can't put a team together to save his life, or get a team. He can put a team together. They just can't get him to play.
He can't develop a bench, which is the most shocking part about all of this. I mean, you've seen entire teams basically transfer away from Ohio State season after season. He manages to recruit at a high enough level to put some semblance of a competent team out until January. And we, again, are in the middle of a January slide that is inevitable at this point for a Chris Holtmann-led Ohio State team. The game against Wisconsin, Wisconsin went a period in the second half of 7.5 minutes without a made basket from the field. They then came down and broke that streak with a made 3-pointer and regained a 1-point lead after not scoring a basket for 7.5 minutes against Michigan on Monday, a bad Michigan team on Monday, albeit on the road for whatever that's worth. Squandered a lead in the second half once again and lost to a bad Michigan team. Ohio State on Monday, 2 of 23 from 3. Yet coming out of timeouts with under 2 minutes left, we're still running plays drawn for a open 3-point basket. Michigan was in the bonus. Ohio State had Michigan in the bonus for the last 5 minutes of that game and did not shoot a single free throw. The same could be said for the Wisconsin game. Did not shoot a single free throw when they got Wisconsin in the bonus. And again at Indiana. I mean, this is just absolutely absurd. Mr. Bjork, please, if you're listening to this for whatever godforsaken reason you've stumbled upon this, please, please, I'm begging you. Chris Holtman, great guy, wonderful human being, could not coach a 12U team to a victory in the second half. I mean, this is absolutely absurd. I understand we hinted at football is king in this introductory press conference today, and by all means, win football games and win a national championship in Columbus again. But for the love of everything holy, please, please get rid of Chris Holtman. Please, I'm begging you.
Yes, Chris Holtman, January 2019, 1-6. January 2020, 2-5. Overall, he is 25-27 in January.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I am so over the 12-2 going into January and finishing 14-18. I mean, it's just it's painful. It's miserable even.
Mhm.
And you know, it's like, good Lord, you're 2 of 23 from 3. Yet you still draw up plays. I mean, Roddy Gale has not been seen since he dropped 30 on West Virginia in Cleveland in December. Roddy Gale has not been he's not been productive at all since he had that game. Bruce Thornton, God love him, but he can't be the entire Ohio State offense every single game. Felix Okpara, really, really good. But again, he cannot be the only performer at the block. Like, give the ball to Zed Key. Let Zed make some plays, damn it. I mean, there's got to be another way. And I mean, my God, dude. It's just it's miss 3 after miss 3 after miss 3 and bad defense and just I mean, it's miserable, man. It's miserable. Again, I get it. Football school, but for the love of God, when is it going to end?
Yeah, it's been tough watching Ohio State basketball in the last few
It's
years.
miserable.
I turned on about 5 minutes of that game on Monday against the team up north and couldn't watch the rest of it, and chose to watch the Columbus Blue Jackets, who ended up winning in a shootout, mind you. So good news there. Bad news there. Yep. Stinger, my guy. That was from the night that we went, and they lost to the Capitals in overtime. Subsequently by giving up a power play, which is what I thought that one was going to happen. But it sounds like, to me, we have gone off the rails. I don't think that this has been the most epic gone off the rails that we've had. I wouldn't even say this is maybe top 5, but we have gone off the rails, and
Chris Holtman made me do it.
Chris Holtman made me do it. Yes. Just like Ryan Day made me do it, and that was our top show ever so far. So let's make this one our top show ever so far.
I like it. We are closing in on 100 subs, guys. So again, thank you guys for the engagement. As Vince mentioned, our 2 episodes ago was our best performing episode yet since we've been doing this. So thank you guys so much for that. Thank you guys for coming back and hanging out with us each week as we put this content out for you, whether it be the Buckeye Show or whether it be the National College Football / NFL Show with me and John Ross. Thank you guys for all the engagement, the support, the shares, the subs, all that kind of stuff, man. It really makes a difference for us. We really enjoy doing this for you guys, and without you guys, there is no this. So once again, thank you. Keep subbing, keep sharing, keep getting us out there, and we'll be here for as long as you guys will have us, bringing you guys the Ohio State news from whatever sport we like to talk about for Ohio State, but most notably football. That's what brought us here, and that's what will be what keeps us here. So we will be here throughout the offseason, bringing you all the coaching changes that are still yet to be made, roster changes that might still happen, and all your other news that comes out of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center for Ohio State. So for
Breaking
Vince, breaking news. Oh, is there right now?
Yes. Are you ready for it?
Yep.
Chris Holtman fired.
You're kidding.
Yes, I am.
Fuck.
I had to. I had to. All right. And on that note, thanks everybody. We will see you next week. For Chris, I'm Vince. See ya.